Are they?
Yeah, the paper ones are on.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay, well, it's
6:30.
Yeah. 6:32. Road Advisory Committee, March 6th, 2024. Can't believe it's already here. Road Advisory Committee called to order at 6:32.
Yep.
And yeah, Bob, you do the roll call, right? Yeah, I'm getting used to the new setup here.
Linda,
Present.
Jillian,
Present.
Ian, present. Carol,
Present.
welcome. Pat, present. Chris, I guess you're part of our group now, yes? No.
Well, he's our project manager, so we can have him under just guest, I guess.
Okay.
I'm assuming that you'll be here pretty consistently, but just in case. And Roy, I haven't heard, so I guess since he's not here, if he shows up late, then we'll include him. And we have a new member. Welcome, Caroline Altamere. Thank you for applying.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm excited.
Yeah, sure.
Can you remind us of your story? You told us a little bit last week about why you're interested in your experience. I think that would just be helpful for all of us to know a little bit.
Well, I paid really no attention to township business at all until a SAD was being put through kind of irregularly to pave roads around me. There we go. And I met Jillian.
You live on
and-
the railroad,
Yes, off a railroad.
off a railroad.
West Street, which is off the railroad. And Jillian guided a bunch of us residents, and so we got together and created a grassroots effort to have a petition to make sure that that did not happen, and it was pretty irregularly being administrated. It just was like when she showed us the statute, and I just said, whoa, this is like way out of order. And this document you're creating, I'm thinking like, it was like way out of order, so that's what got me started in township business. And then I started attending the township board meetings, via Zoom, then obviously over Zoom and so on, and keeping track of kind of what's going on and so on and so forth. And I have been a precinct delegate for 6 years now for the Washington County Democratic Party. Last year or 2 years ago, I was an area captain, which was a new program that the Washington County Democratic Party put together to help organize volunteers. And they've divided up the county into areas. And so I was an area captain for that last election cycle 2 years ago. And Jillian, as she mentioned, approached my husband, who just is newly retired, to say, do you want to be on the roads committee? And he said, I just retired, I'm taking time off. And she pinged me, and I thought, you know what? I went through a SAD, it was very interesting for me last month when I came to the meeting. I thought, you know what? Yeah, this is something I'd like to do.
Cool.
So that's why I'm here.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions? Oh, if you received the previous version, there was a mistake there's not 2 unfinished business items. There's only 1. Granicus has glitches. So I did go in, and when I sent an update, because I included the report from last night's board meeting, so I went in and changed that and it stuck. So hopefully you haven't printed it off, or the old. So if
I just had a question.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Is there anything we need to do about Washington County Road Commission and? Okay,
we're just waiting to hear back.
great.
Yeah, they're getting the agenda, the agreement together, and then which would include the estimated cost. And you have your DDA meeting next week. I believe it's next, is it next Monday, or did you already have it?
We had one last month.
Oh, in April. Okay, so hopefully your agreement for the 2 roads will be ready by then. Dino and Medi. Yes, okay. All in favor of adopting the agenda as is?
Aye.
Aye. This is the time for public comment. And there's nobody present in person, so
Nope.
anybody online?
Yeah, Rob Patterson, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you, Rob. And Rob, just to be clear that Attorney Fink is not here to give legal advice. However, there is, we can discuss a public body versus a subcommittee. I think that would be helpful. Okay, well, all right, we'll ask him and whatever he feels is the right thing how to answer, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I just don't wanna get into something that could be like a case or legal opinion. But okay, we have that question. Was there anything else for you, Rob? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Amy Milanovic, if you'd like to go.
Yeah, good evening. So some of you I worked with some time ago and the SAD did not come to fruition, and I'm kind of just trying to get back in the loop, as I understood that the SADs were off the table, but I see in this agenda it looks like they're back on the table, or there's some discussion about them. So I just want to advocate for roads that we get some attention to being addressed as our roads continue to erode. And I guess that's my comment. So I apologize that I'm not more up to date on what's been going on, but I will attempt to get myself up to date as I watch this meeting and hopefully others moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, and what the Road Advisory Committee is doing right now is we're working on procedures, policies for special assessments. And then it's a long process. It has to go in front of legal and the board for approval and whatnot. We're also working on a plan for the next round of funding, and that more than likely will be a millage that with the voters, it would be on a ballot, an election. And so there would be the only time, and again, this all has to be board approved, the only time that we would do a special assessment is if it was a neighborhood with a gravel or a road that was gravel and wanted to upgrade to paved. So hopefully, if we figure this millage out correctly, we'll have enough money to do as many roads as possible. So in Park Ridge would be, since it's gravel, then that would be a gravel uplift. Hopefully that, go ahead.
If I understand correctly, you're saying Park Ridge would only be supported under that millage if it was to move from gravel to pavement?
No, it would
Oh.
only be, to maintain and improve the gravel road.
Okay, okay.
And then if you-
and-
Go ahead.
And I mean, what is the process, or what would be the process for figuring out the prioritization of those? I know-
That's what we're working on.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Anybody else?
That's it.
Okay. Let's see, next would be communications and correspondences, and the culvert grant is, hopefully everybody's heard that we did receive. Now the construction won't begin until 2025, but at least we'll have those 3 culverts taken care of for 25% of the cost. Now we will be paying up 50% first, and then we'll be reimbursed the 25%. However, we're getting 3 culverts for the price of $55,000, which is glad we took advantage of this. Road funding package, let's see. Donna Palmer, Treasurer Palmer there was something in there regarding FOIA, so that was important. She sent it to all staff. I don't know if it went to all committees, but anything that we do or talk about in an email or even through a text message, and it has to do with township business, that is subject to FOIA, just to keep that in mind. Okay, and I guess next would be, if we're ready to move on with that, from there. Yeah. Discussion would be the Open Meetings Act question and answer with Township Attorney Jim Fink. There he is. Hi.
Hi,
Good evening.
So,
should I start with Mr. Pattinson's question?
Sure, go ahead.
But I'll start with this, and for those of you on the committee that I don't know, when you see me at a board meeting, you'll often hear me say that I'm reluctant to give legal advice on the fly because there's an opportunity a bigger opportunity to make a mistake. But I can answer Mr. Pattinson's question because he had enough conditions in there that I can give a solid, it depends. And Rob, I'll just tell you that you said a trustee establishes a committee. So the first part would be if this is a group of neighbors and not an official governmental body, then it's not going to be subject to the Open Meetings Act. And just like your body, which I think is arguably not legally subject to the Open Meetings Act, you may decide that it's a best practice to behave as if you are. And that's why the board adopted the policy that it has, that township boards and committees should behave as if they're subject to the Open Meetings Act, even if they're not. And that, I'm not going to go through every condition of the act, such as posting your schedule at the first meeting of the year and those kind of things. But it does mean that you conduct your deliberations in public, you keep minutes, and that the business is done in a way that's transparent and available for public review. And I imagine you may have some questions for me, so I'll stop there. And I have a couple other things to say when we're done and before I leave tonight, but does anyone have a question?
what's the most common method that people get tripped up? Like what's the,
What gets us in trouble?
yeah,
The common.
yeah, what's the, like, the thing that everybody does that we should avoid? There must be like a common, I don't know what it is, right?
Say something that everyone does, or we would probably have addressed it through legislation. But for example, if there are four members of the township board who happen to be someplace, maybe at a retirement reception in the boardroom, or gathering to meet before the start of the regular board meeting, and they start to talk about something that's on the agenda, then they have a quorum and they're deliberating on an issue, that could be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. It probably would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. But it applies only when there's a quorum. But in following up on your question, another way that people run afoul of the act is by thinking that if they don't have a quorum present, so 3 of us will speak over here, and then 2 of us will go talk to the next person, and that's still only 3. And then we'll go talk to the next person and do deliberations in groups of less than a quorum. That can be a violation, especially if it's intended to subvert the act or circumvent the act. And then the last one I'll mention, and the chair, Trustee Carey, mentioned it, that emails, one, could be subject to the Freedom of Information Act, even if they're on your private devices. But if a body is doing deliberation by email, then that could be seen as a way of deliberating to circumvent the idea of a public meeting. And if I'm on a thread with you, I don't have any objection to someone, let's say it's the chair, saying, tomorrow night, I would like to discuss the new SAD policy and whether it's good for the community. That's fine. That's one statement by one member of the committee. And then someone else says, I would like to discuss that also, because I think we need to work in a process whereby we do this. And then the next person says, I don't think we should do that. I think that we should be looking at it this way. And you start to have this thread that I think is akin to a Facebook conversation, although I don't know, I don't have a Facebook account, I just hear about it. That could also be a violation of the act. And if I'm on that thread, I will usually jump in and say, I advise you not to do deliberations in this. And you'll see folks who have been working with me for a long time say something like, please don't reply all. And that's another way to make sure that you don't end up in a conversation that should really be done in public.
He does that to the board quite a bit.
I think we've
And
had
it's a
it
good
drummed
reminder.
into us. You know, you've told us, don't reply. So we
Yeah,
don't.
and sometimes I overthink things, and I'll call Jim or Mariah and say, and then I'm overthinking things, but I just, and I took a class with the MTA recently. I've been every month. They have Now You Know, and there was something, it was the FOIA, but there was another one, and the man that was presenting the class, he gave me a really good reminder. I did run for office and was elected, so I'm on the board. So we look at the board as the government, but anybody that is appointed to a committee is the government. And we tend to forget that. We tend to think that we're just here to, create something, which we are, but then we forget that we really are making decisions for other people. And the whole point of the government run by the people is to be transparent. That's, yeah, and it just kind of really sunk in for me. And that's the purpose of the Open Meetings Act, is to have transparency. Is that correct? Or is there more to it than that?
It's both and, it's correct, and there's more to it than that. But the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act together are called sunshine laws, and the idea is to shine light on the activities of the government. And both have exceptions, because there are some things that you just can't do in public. And so there are statutory exceptions to the Open Meetings Act that allow for closed sessions, although there's only a few and they're narrowly drawn. And when the board goes into a closed session, we generally will give the exact reason and the portion of the statute that applies, so that it's both in the record of why they went into a closed session. And it also is a reminder that sets up those barricades so that we don't run too far afield. So if for example, the township board were to go into closed session to discuss labor negotiations with, let's say, the firefighters union, while they are in closed session, they can't start talking about something else. And they don't, but you sometimes hear about boards that do, or there's something that's related and maybe it turns into a discussion about someone's discipline. That should not happen, and usually someone will stop it. But that's an example of an exception. There are exceptions to the Open Meetings Act public meeting requirement, but again, they're narrowly drawn. And the same thing with the Freedom of Information Act. There are some things that are not subject to disclosure or are subject to redaction. And the most frequent one is personal information or an invasion of privacy. There is a looser standard on the invasion of privacy for police records, but for regular records, even if it's a clearly unwarranted invasion of privacy, then that information wouldn't have to be released. In general, we don't give out cell phone numbers. We have a state statute that prohibits distributing a social security number, so that's automatically exempt. But then there are other things that are exempt also.
I have a question. During one of the MTA meetings, it was on the art of the agenda, and the person that was presenting that class had said that they talked about the minutes. So we take minutes, and then at the next meeting, after the meeting we took the minutes, we approve them. But he said that if something happens where we forgot, let's say we just forgot the minutes and we didn't approve it, that after that, the minutes would automatically be approved, even though we didn't approve them because we missed that meeting after the meeting. Is that, I was really fascinated with that because I thought, that we had to approve those minutes.
Is your question, do you have to?
Yes, or if we don't, would they automatically be approved?
Well,
Without,
I think they automatically, and I'm saying I think, it appears they automatically become the official minutes, and that the opportunity to amend them is at that first meeting. And that's probably what they mentioned. To me,
Yes.
that's a statute that could be amended and give an opportunity to make legitimate corrections later. But of course, you don't want to come back week after week after week after someone has had a thought and said, well, I think we should change the January 14th minutes to say this because that's more accurate of what actually happened. And some places you'll see their minutes can be 10 or 15 pages long. Other places can get their minutes into 1 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with 2.5 inch margins all the way around. And it's a difference of whether you put in details such as what was said at public comment, or just that there was public comment, or the discussion that's had by the board or committee, or whether it's just that a discussion was held. The purpose of the minutes is to record the actions of the body. So what's necessary is to document that it was called to order, that these items came up on the agenda and the board took these actions on them, and then the meeting was adjourned. The rest of it is optional. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't put those things in, but it's not required to have detailed minutes.
thank you. Yeah, the rest above and beyond what is the minimum, that would be up to the board or the committee to include if we wanted. We've never missed amending the minutes or approving them. So it was brought up in that class, and I thought just in case, in the future, if that ever was brought up, that we would know. Do you have anybody else have questions or comments for? No? Well, I guess that's it. It was pretty painless, right, Jim?
I think I can recover within a day or two.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your wisdom.
Thank you. It's good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Good evening. So the next on the agenda Patrick,
Mhm.
the SAD draft primer and background materials and flow chart. And Ian, thank you for sending the updated flow
Yeah,
chart, or you did some
I just
tweaks?
modified it.
You modified it, okay, but I didn't have a chance, I knew that you sent it, I didn't have a chance to look at it.
I can share it and
Do you have,
it's exactly the same as the old one, but
you could put it up on the screen? Okay, did
Yeah.
were you able to open it? Okay.
I revised it based on your comments from the last meeting. With the 10% overrun.
So what did,
And what happened was, program I was using, it wouldn't allow me to use any more shapes. So I asked, remember Ian said he had a different program. So we talked today. Officially, okay.
it was only two of us,
There's only
so
two of us working on the.
working on a document.
I wondered, it came out of the blue and I'm like, weird.
Well, we added the shape for the 10% overrun.
Those are good. So I couldn't
Hang on.
put this into my document. Wanted to add it to the back of the section and I couldn't figure out how to work with the software to get that to go.
So,
See the decision box there, greater than 10% overrun, then you have a decision. If it's not, then you continue, and if it's a greater than 10% overrun, you gotta have that public meeting again.
could, is there more to it to scroll down? Or,
Well, you're right at the bottom here, where you've got work satisfactory, no, develop punch list and complete, or yes, and
Okay.
but it's,
and then,
I mean, the whole process is in there basically,
oh, I see.
Yep.
I guess we,
So on one page.
all on one page. And the colorblind person used red and green, broke all my own rules.
oh,
But, if it's, you're gonna end, it's a no, and if you're gonna go, it's a green, basically, was
oh,
kind of what I was thinking.
that makes sense. And could, if we save that in a PDF?
It is a PDF.
Oh, it is,
It
okay.
was sent in a PDF, so,
And if we print it, it'll be on one, do you think, or will it
Yeah.
be two? Okay,
yeah, you just make it fit to a page. But
Your
it,
landscape there, not.
no, this is portrait. If
yeah, it looks like,
I,
oh, don't do it small.
it'll fit on a page.
Okay, if you could, I can include that into the next packet,
It's in everybody's inbox, so
okay.
but do not reply, obviously.
Very nice work,
You know,
John.
Ian, you always get in trouble.
I really like the flow chart and the
Yep.
That was a really good
summarization.
idea. I don't think that way. And as soon as you said it, it's, wow, yes. Then you should work with the two together.
It's the only way I think.
And the tool I used, I've got access to it through work. It's called Miro. And it's, it's just kind of it's basically an online tool that you can use for brainstorming or prototype, like mapping out anything you want. And I just grabbed one of the templates is a flow chart. I'm like, I'll give that a go. And it's really easy. So, just as an educational point, it's a nice tool. And there is a free license for it that limits your usage, but it gives you access to this. So
Okay, all right.
Miro, M-I-R-O.
M-I-R-O, Miro, yeah. I'm usually cursing at it as a piece of software, but for once I was like, it's quite easy. It took me probably 20 minutes.
I was using Lucid, but Lucid limited the number of shapes you could use.
Could you scroll up?
Yep.
Free stuff does that too. So this one could be used, I'm thinking, so reading through the primer and then speaking with Chris and Patrick the other day. I think it was you, Patrick.
I know we had a couple of
Yeah,
conversations.
I know, it's been a long couple of weeks here, but
You say that every.
well, yeah. Budget season's almost over, so it'll get easier. So regarding private road SADs and then public road SADs, we're gonna have to have two primers. So, and the reason why is because WCRC will do the engineering for public roads. And then that is actually a pretty easy process compared to private. And then last night during the board meeting, we had the last two subjects of our budget was the SAD funds, which we have way too many. But there's questions about that. And then we had capital improvement plan. Between that and cost allocation, I keep getting them backwards. So there was we have interest and we have the administration fees and there's a lot of issues with those and we're sending it to finance and they're gonna figure it out. But the more that they talked about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's gonna be a different process for private roads, just, even with the finances. So this is why we need to have two separate private and public road people. Go ahead, this is easy here. 1, 2, 3. Private, well, it's gonna be extra work. And that's gonna be actually extra work for Chris because he's going to have to, along with the township manager, go out for bid for the engineer, and then hopefully, I don't know, there's just gonna be a lot more to it. But we'll get there. So I figure if we figure out the primer, is that what we're calling?
I think it's a primer.
Primer, I'm sorry, primer,
But that's what
or we're priming up primer. The primer for public, it'll be easy to plug in what we need for the private.
Right. Can you remind me what the act was? You told me the other day and I.
139 for private roads. And then we would follow the process. In 139, it says to follow the process of PA 188.
Okay.
But there's
There's
differences.
exceptions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's, yes, because with private, we can only fund for 5 years. And then at that 5-year mark, then we could have another hearing to continue the funding for another 5 years. But then I was like, that's kind of interesting because in that you're figuring out how much they owe per year. And we can't say, oh, well, we're gonna have 8 years but after 5 years, we're gonna come back and reevaluate.
Yeah.
So that's where we need.
Yeah.
If we can get this, the public and get it through legal and the board, that'll be a quicker process and at least we'll have something.
Mhm.
How does it change the tactics of the process, the steps?
Well, because here, in the beginning, it talks about WCRC, which is true, then, because WCRC owns all the roads except for private. So then, let's say it's a public, improvement. The township manager and project manager would contact the road commission and say, we have this, we've already verified that these are the parcel owners within this potential project area. Could you come in and evaluate what they're asking for and give us it's not, I'd call it a guesstimate, but it's a preliminary estimate.
Like we did on Park Ridge.
Yes, exactly. So they do the roads, they own the roads, they know them inside and out, and they do these improvements all the time. And then they're also monitoring the cost of materials and whatnot. So they can just say, yeah, this is gonna be between $250,000 and $350,000. That gives a ballpark. Now, we wouldn't be able to use WCRC for private because it's a public entity. So that's a little nerve wracking because I'm like, oh my gosh, who would be, unless Chris becomes more and more attuned to those types of projects and will be able to do something like that, like, oh, this will be $300,000. Are you still interested? There's 5 of us, no. There's 20 of us, yes,
So do you know how maintenance goes with that? With
PA 188 does not cover ongoing maintenance. Public Act 246, that's under the road commission, if they did a SAD, they have to cover maintenance. Your neighborhood would be a good example of that.
Yeah.
But no, so, once the SAD is completed, or the project is completed, the SAD is paid off, then the maintenance, so that's another thing. Would we take care of the paving after a SAD? Would the township do that?
So I'm getting at,
We're not set up to do that right now, so.
No, and what,
Public or private?
it would be public. I mean, we don't have to because it's not in 188, but as a township millage, would we include that?
that was definitely what we proposed, was that maintenance would be part of it.
Yeah.
So that just saves you so much money to do a good job of maintaining it. As you saw in the county's report, keeping them maintained at 6, 7 saves you so much money over the long haul.
So what do they do for maintenance? Is it just crack fill? Is it,
That liquid sealer.
The new liquid sealer is the thing they use now.
Once we paved for the SAD, the township maintains it.
Yeah.
no, that, yes, but that was,
That's what we want to propose.
but we don't, by law, we don't have to because it's not a PA 188. Now, with the previous 10-year SAD that they had, the road advisory committee had included that in with any neighborhood that wanted to have an improvement, that the township wide SAD would pay for the maintenance of that.
I was just talking to a couple of neighbors this afternoon. And we were talking about the maintenance that's been done and how it's really protected our road pretty well. And as you see, the amount of tar that's on it that was put on there to protect it, you can imagine what it would look like if we hadn't done the maintenance.
Well, we could do something that we could include whatever that, the sealer in with the SAD, that would be part of the paving cost for that first time. And then after that, the township we could do maintenance later on. And then because it's gonna happen, when the pavement is so bad that it needs an improvement, then they would have to have another SAD for that. I mean, there's different options because we won't be able with a millage unless, I don't know how much a millage would be to cover all the roads and, the maintenance of paving.
I thought that was, the idea of the millage there was exactly that, to keep it maintained.
Right.
Like, so I'm not sure where I'm not following you, I guess.
Well, we're not, so if a neighborhood improves their roads from a gravel to a paved,
Private or public?
it would be public. This would be the example of
I
public.
see, so public, they wanna pave it, it's gravel and they wanna pave it,
That would be under a special assessment.
right?
Then we can include in that cost within 6 months to a year or whatever they do for that sealer, they say that the earlier the better. That would be part of the cost, just part of the SAD.
One time.
Just
One time. Because that's what the road commission is doing right now for paving. And then later on, maybe, I don't know how long that sealer lasts, we could do the math on it, and if it's, I mean, we could include it under the millage for the maintenance of it later on. It's just something, there's different ideas that we can throw around, we're not there yet, but
Cost of the ceiling versus the cost of like regrading or gravel uplift or whatever, isn't it? It's
Paved though.
Now it's paved, so there's.
now it's paved, but is it more expensive to maintain it?
I think so. Well,
No.
I mean,
That's a right.
It's an SAD. The SAD decided. they
Right,
wanted-
but once the SAD is done, like, what's the cost to maintain gravel versus paved? It's a rhetorical question.
yeah,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
so that's,
I don't know why you're mentioning gravel though. The road's paved now. There is no comparison.
I'm just trying to understand, like, is it more expensive to maintain a paved road or a gravel road?
That's a separate question.
It was
It's
like way
relevant.
back at the beginning now, we're talking like, at the first thought about this, should we pave or gravel, pave or just maintain gravel?
So somebody decides to do a SAD, okay? And up until that point, we were maintaining their road as a gravel road and it cost something. They now decided to do a SAD. Are they encumbering more on the township because of that decision? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Oh,
What's the sad though? Is it to uplift like Park Ridge wanted to do in gravel?
no, it would only be paved.
Or
I'm only talking about the one scenario where an SAD is to convert a road from gravel to paved.
yes,
I'm trying to understand if they're encumbering more on the township because of that decision,
For future
The
meetings.
future, yes.
the future maintenance.
So we would have to, I guess we would have to evaluate, here's the paved road. Newly paved, within that year, the sealer, how long does that pavement and sealer last? Is it 5 years, or does that sealer need to be applied? Do you know, Linda, do you remember? Cause Roy had talked about it.
Yeah.
I don't
Would it be-
specifically remember.
5 years, and how long would that road hold up? And then it also depends on the, how much traffic too.
Yeah, and the kind of traffic.
but doesn't WCRC maintain the gravel road? If it's a public road?
But we're talking about if somebody went through the SAD and then the maintenance, or, and paved it.
It's one very narrow scenario, isn't it?
But it's something, cause there's all these different things that we need to think about.
When WCRC comes in and maintains the gravel road, they come down our road probably 4 or 5 times a year. Right? Do we pay that or WCRC pays that?
Well, we pay through our taxes. I mean, not, you know.
I know what you're asking, but I think that's really separate from what I'm getting at. I'm just getting at, somebody's decided to pave their neighborhood area. Does it put more burden on the township once it's paved because of that choice? It's just, it's just curiosity more than anything.
But under PA 188, we're not really given any authorization to base any judgment on anything other than what's in
Right, we don't,
PA 180.
right, we don't have to maintain anything after that point.
Yeah.
But. Okay, so I think that we're getting a little confused because maintenance and improvement are two different things. And what we're doing is figuring out a process, a plan for, let's say, the millage, and that would be improvements. Because we're gonna have these gravel roads that are breaking down over time and they're gonna need uplifts. So the maintenance part of it, that's WCRC. They're gonna go through and they're gonna dust and they're gonna brine the dust. They're going to smooth out the chatter bumps. They're gonna do all of that. And every once in a while, they'll dump a little bit of gravel. But what we're doing is making sure that those roads are in good condition so the maintenance can happen. Park Road, they're maintaining it. I mean, well, it's not because there's nothing there. There's no base. So that's all we would be doing. So we should be using the words improvement and not maintenance unless we specifically say what the separate with the maintenance.
My thought is that this is a question somebody at the road commission has to know. The next time you and or Chris are meeting with them, and this is to Ian's specific question, there's gotta be numbers on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And it's probably a simple thing.
Roy's told us before, it's just not, and I probably have it in a document somewhere, but finding it is the next issue.
yeah,
We'll let Jillian and Chris.
Yeah.
yeah. So Chris, it would be, once a road is paved. So there's this new product that they're using, the sealer. Roy would know the name of it. He sent us pictures of it. It looks like milk chocolate when they put it down, and then when it dries, it just looks road. So how long does a paved road last, a newly paved road last before it needs to be repaved? And also
Sealed.
Yeah, and then when it's
The
sealed.
maintenance, and there's a couple of kinds of maintenance.
Exactly, there's the chip
Yeah.
seal,
Yeah,
but
They
he
won't-
said don't want to chip seal in a neighborhood
Right.
because it upsets everybody.
Yes.
So, yep, and then there's grinding it, isn't there? Grinding it and
That-
laying it.
That's what, over on Laurentide, that's what they will be doing. Because they're gonna have to remove that layer. But, and then also there's the tar, is it tar that they put in the cracks and it looks like snakes,
Yeah.
when it's finished? Yeah, and that, by that time, and then over time, that the more that they do, they have to eventually just repave it. And that will help.
And what Ian wants to get is just compare the costs over like a 10-year period or a 15-year period of the two. Is that right?
Yeah, so if we do have the scenario where, okay, we'll do the ceiling included in your SAD, and then if we choose to do this, and this will be based on cost, how many years after that would the township pay for that resealing or whatever it is?
Question. Is it chip seal that was put on East Delhi between the railroad tracks and Huron River Drive
Yep.
in the last 6 months? Is that a chip seal?
It's like suntan lotion for the road, according to Roy. So it really helps prolong the life of the road for relatively low cost. So it's it drives everybody insane, but it's a really good thing to do. Because it just
Because
protects
it's
the
rocky
road.
and
Yeah,
spits up rocks when you drive on it.
It's horrible on the bike.
I imagine.
I bet.
So I think we're ready to look at primer and the policies and all of that. Basically, where I'm at is that's like 9 months of work. I'm ready to pass it on to somebody else. If there's any comments or suggestions, all the ones that you guys gave me at the last meeting are integrated into here. And if there's more, great. If not, I'd like to propose that we move it to the next stage, which is have the legal look at it, or the other idea I have is for possibly Chris to work with with the road commission and say, okay, do we have everything right? Before we have legal look at it, on the engineering side, is that correct? I think those are the two options that come to my mind.
Yeah, well, we need to remove anything that talks about private roads in here.
Okay,
And there are some, and I did make some notes, earlier.
you want to just give those to me and I can,
Well, it was only on the first page. I was just reviewing just some minor things, but,
all the mistakes are on the first page.
I had a question on the first page, actually 2 questions when I was looking at
Sure.
it, if I could jump in there. Actually, it's page 2. It talks about petitioning. So the SAD representative, let's say it was me in my neighborhood, contacts Scio Township, requests a process petition packet, provides the packet to SAD rep, that would be me, turns in a petition with at least 75% of the property owner's signatures of the proposed SAD. So I go through my neighborhood, let's say West Street, and I can get, if I'm knocking on doors and talking to them about this, immediately the first question is gonna be, how much is it to me? That's, I mean, yeah, I'd like to pay, but what's it gonna cost me as an individual taxpayer for the 10 years that it gets on the public, because it goes over 10 years. That part of it doesn't come until much later. I'm just wondering, how do you get buy off from a neighborhood? If you have only 14 houses like I do, that might be a little bit different than somebody who has 50 or 60 houses in there. I'm just saying, so that's my first question. I mean, I understand the process, but how does one go about getting buy off?
so it would be, the first step would be, let's say, you're interested in having your road paved. So then you start knocking on doors and asking, hey, what would you say, how do you feel about having the road paved? And, well, how much would it be and all of that? Oh, would you be interested in having a meeting with the road commission and the township, and then they could give us those details? You want the interest first, and if you have, let's say, you said what, 14 in your neighborhood, 14 homes, and there's 10 homes that are interested, then we could have just a preliminary question and answer type meeting.
So basically, if somebody says, if it's gonna cost me $1,000 more a year in my taxes,
Well, right now, it's just, would you be interested in knowing more?
That's the purpose of the flow chart,
okay,
okay? So where you can take people through the process. And then at some point, there's actually 2 meetings before you get a
Right.
figure.
right,
So I think the way to go about it is you get interest. And you want to get 75% interest
okay.
and follow the process. And if you have to, you can make copies of the flow chart. Don't give them the 8 pages of all the words and all that. Just say, well, here's the process. And at this point in the process, half a page down the flow chart, or 3/8 of the page down, this is where we're going to get some specific figures. We'll get an estimate ahead of that, broad brush, whatever we call it,
Ballpark, I think.
Ballpark.
Yeah.
and then we'll get a specific estimate later on.
Could you,
So,
oh, thank you.
So this procedure here, I mean, this is putting readability to the statute, basically, is what this is
That's the
doing.
hope.
Yeah, that's what the whole purpose of this is. And I guess my question is that other people who have done SADs, who've gone to their neighborhood and said, you know, what do y'all, if we all have done something, what do y'all think? Would you like to have the road paved? It just seems to me, at least knowing my particular neighborhood, the very first question is, it totally depends how much it's gonna cost me, period, stop.
But they can back out at the point that the costs are presented.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, okay, and it could just be
It's
the
not all or
relationship
nothing.
you have with your neighbors and so on and so forth, but anyway, it is what it is. I was just it was more just like a hypothetical.
Part of the reason it's so difficult.
Yeah,
Huh?
but you know, that's a really good, you know, we should have some type of role playing, and I think you're perfect for this because you're brand new and you're not stuck in the whole PA 188 and all the lingo.
Yeah, lucky you.
So,
See, it's a two-edged sword though.
Does come.
We could probably come up with an estimate, just based on Roy's been telling us so much per mile and all that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But the
True.
problem you run into with that is when the actual dollars come in and you've lied to the neighbors, ain't gonna go over very well.
Well, and I think
I
that,
would stick to the process.
no, I understand what you're saying, and I think that how you pose it, say, all I can give you are just rough ballparks at this point. And if you know your neighbors well enough, I'm just saying, but like if you're in a big community, anyway, I just said that that's something that kind of, when I was reading this, I thought, if somebody knocked on my door and said, I really would like to get the road paved, what do you think? My first question is, how much is it gonna cost me?
Mhm.
How versus how unhappy I am with my gravel road.
Mhm.
If it's gonna cost me $1,000 a year, I'm not that unhappy. If it's gonna cost me 500 a year, maybe I'm not. If it's gonna cost me two grand a year, I really like my gravel road. You know what I mean? And right off the get, I'd be saying, you know what? Yeah or nah, depending on.
well,
So I'm just saying,
Oh, I was gonna say, there's a sales technique.
yeah, exactly. And this has been done for, people have been using the statute, so obviously people get it done, you know, so.
So there's 2 ways that they can pay for it too. So one of the ways that you could float that is, you know, we can have a meeting. We can put together a ballpark estimate. But we won't have real costs until we're, you know, way down here. But this is an opportunity to get the road paved, and you may have the township carry the financing on this and only pay a small amount each year, as opposed to having to pay the entire amount at the front end. So it's an opportunity to get a capital improvement done. Do you, my neighbor, feel that it improves your lifestyle and your property value?
No, I understand, yeah.
Perhaps, but we encourage you to come
Yeah,
and have the discussion with us. If you can't get 75% interest and, there's Park Ridge,
it's a done deal,
it's
yeah.
a dead deal, and you have to wait for people to sell their homes and new people to come in.
So people who do a SAD who get, and it goes through, they have the option to finance it over 10 years or pay it all in one,
that's
right?
it's up to the township. It's usually, 8 years?
I'm sorry.
Or
It's
18.
It's up to, yeah, 10.
Well, you're through the road commission, so it's different for mine through the, and it, well, the Drain Commission, which is the Water Commission. Mine was, it was 8 years, and that's only because they were able to finance it themselves. If they would have gone out to a bank, the interest rates were too high at the time, then it would have been 5 years. It was up to the bank. So the township, and I believe, I don't remember PA 188 having a time frame other than the for private roads. So it could be 8, it could be 10. But that's something we'll have to ask.
But the choice is, there is an option to finance it over X number of years.
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
end, or pay it all right now and be done.
Oh, and you could pay it in full if you,
That's what I'm saying, pay
And then
it one and
yeah.
done.
You avoid the interest as well.
yeah, you
Right,
have to do
right.
that before a certain time. If not, then you will be charged interest after. And Bob, you just, oh, yes, we could give a rough guesstimate based on how much the road project would be, but there's also other charges that we don't know.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
another thing, so we'll
That's
have
the
to.
tricky part. Ditching, tree trimming, tree removal.
There's administration fees and things like that too, right?
Yeah, and then there will be interest because it's a loan from the general fund.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
But so yeah, so just think of the process like you went to. You're thinking you're at home and you're looking at your crappy gravel road. There's a great big, more pits. You just lost the back axle. And you're like, this would be really great if it's paved. So think about that from that process. Like, what would you do next? Well, you could go to the township and say, hey, what can we do to pave this road? And then they would say, oh, here, pack your shields.
No, that's why this is gonna be great.
Yes.
This is gonna be great, yeah. And I actually did 8 years ago approach whoever was the supervisor before Will.
Right.
And
Jack Knowles, but it was
Jack-
Bryce. It was like
I
Bryce.
had a meeting with him and I
the
said, what would
manager.
it take to get my road paved? At that point, he said you need to get at least 50% of the people on board with doing it and they're gonna share costs over 10 years. And my road at that time was almost completely fixed income seniors and I knew that was not gonna fly. Period, stop. So I walked out and I said, okay, not even gonna try, because I know no matter what, it's not gonna fly.
Well, it's always worth, gathering the neighbors and then finding out,
Right, exactly.
that's,
But at that moment, I just kind of, because I knew my neighborhood.
yeah, right.
But the other, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
the other question I had is in section 3, it mentions township manager and township project manager, and then afterwards in the document, it just says the manager. Which one is it referring to and then subsequently in the document? Like in 3A, it says the manager, B, the manager, township. I mean, I'm just since there are two specified in
What-
section 3 on page 2.
Page
Of
2
this.
of the policy.
Yeah. Says for approval, project area, township manager and township project manager develop preliminary plans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then later on, it just references the manager. I might be picking nits here, but I'm just wondering if it if it makes a difference.
Project. Is the intention.
Okay, wait a minute, we're looking at the policy or the primer?
She's on page 2, number 3.
Page 2, yours doesn't, that doesn't look
Okay,
like what.
well, the policy is different than the primer.
I'm looking at the primer.
Okay.
But look at the top though, it says policy though.
Oh, okay, now I'm sorry, looking at the policy then, sorry. It's
No, I
a
hear you.
nit thing,
Yeah.
and I just was thinking, since 2 managers were mentioned, and later on there's reference to the manager, I was just thinking.
Good catch.
Maybe
Well,
some clarification on
Right, so
which manager.
the township manager is the administrator of the operations.
Right.
The project manager, Chris, your job is to, if there's a project, you would oversee those projects. You would still work with the manager.
The question is, it says the manager, which one is it?
Right, that's what I'm trying to narrow down with Chris and, thinking from that, because if, I did read in here somewhere about, we would contact the township manager. So is the township manager going to be making sure all of this is followed through? Or Chris, would the manager be contacting WCRC or would you be? And I think that would help us because if the project manager is overseeing this, of course, you would still be communicating with the manager, but how much of the role of the role that the manager would be involved in?
Because on 3A, it says, the manager submits a letter requesting that the WCRC, et cetera, et cetera.
So what's happened here is this was done long enough ago that we didn't have a vision for Chris.
True. And we started plugging him in.
Yeah, so in the primer is plugged in
The
because
township
we
manager.
then knew that we were
Joyce.
gonna hire somebody.
Yeah.
So you really caused something important that we haven't thought through. Just because the document is old enough.
Yeah, the township would just stop changing.
Yeah.
No, we've been begging for a
Here,
staff.
don't, yes, don't.
You know, you're not going to.
It's just easier to change this than stop
Yeah.
the township from changing.
Yes.
Does Joyce submit the letter or does Chris submit the letter?
Or would you leave it as it is and it gives the flexibility of it's either or? It's going to, that way in the future, if there isn't.
It seems to me that
or it
that
changes,
opens up a
you leave it,
potential
so
for.
one of us
I
is going
thought
to
you
do
were
it.
gonna do
whether
it.
it's the
Bob, I thought you were
township
gonna do
manager
it, you know, kind of
or the
thing.
project manager, it gives flexibility. I don't know if that's the direction you want to go
Well,
in.
okay,
You can't do that in a process. It's gotta be specific.
Right.
You can't say,
Too hard to do in a flow.
you can't say the paragraph before that township manager and mention a project manager and then the very next paragraph say the manager.
Right.
yeah, because it has to, this is for the public, so it has to be as easy as possible to understand.
I'm
And then,
picking this because I don't have all the background that a lot of you guys have, and so I'm looking at this, if I read this, if.
No.
We're happy for the fresh set of eyes.
Yeah, but this makes sense to me.
Right, Pat? We just missed.
Right, yeah. So in my previous lifetimes, I would be the equivalent of the project manager. I would write it for the manager, who would then edit it, and the manager would then send it over to the road commission. So Chris would make for sure that all the pieces are right, give that draft to Joyce. So what do you think? And then the two of them would work it out, and then it would go out under Joyce's signature, but Chris would
That makes sense.
put all the pieces together. At least in my life, that's how that would have worked.
Chris, does that sound like a good option for?
Well, who contacts the WCRC now?
Well, Joyce does, however, we are on the thread. So if I have a question for Adam, I will send an email, but I will include Joyce and Chris. So there's nobody is going to the road commission on our own. Now, of course, Joyce can contact the road commission all she wants because they only really want one person. It's just been a little different this year because of the ARPA funding and you know, the changes and whatnot. So looking forward, like next year when things are normal, what's that gonna look like?
Okay, so let's boil it down. Chris, do you want to ask Joyce if to be her or you? Let's get on with life.
Well, so I have my weekly meeting with Joyce tomorrow at 1. Would you be available so we can,
One, I think I am.
okay,
I believe so.
then we can talk with her about this.
Let me know what manager goes in there.
Yeah, okay, so we know that a manager has to go in there. We'll figure that part out.
Thank you, Charlotte.
The other, the other thing, so in page 2,
Talking about the policy. The permit.
yeah, well, see, now I don't know the difference because,
I would stick to the page numbers from the index as the first page, so the primer starts on page 10.
I'm looking at the policy, which is what Carol.
Carol,
Yeah,
talk
so
about
that's-
policy, yeah.
I was, that was.
well, in the policy, we kind of put aside while we were working on the primer. That's, I think, did I upload the wrong?
Yeah,
I did.
I don't think I've seen the primer in there.
Okay, so what is the British pronounce?
That was primer.
Oh, we had this conversation before.
I know.
Don't go there, it's the
Primer.
short answer.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, I have last meetings.
That's February 24 on the bottom of what was attached to the agenda.
Well, whatever you sent me, Patrick, I downloaded and uploaded. So this is,
the latest. And I apologize for the editing with all the blue. I thought I had taken that out. And when I looked at it, the blue was not there. So anyway, if that
Okay.
confuses anybody.
So page 10
It's the beginning of the.
is the beginning of the primer.
Yep.
So you have a different date.
So this is, is the policy and the primer gonna be given to residents, both?
They'll both be available on the website. You can click on it.
yeah,
You have to come. to
well, the
this,
policy,
Open it here.
The primer is kind of like a really easy reading.
yeah, so
Yeah,
it's,
no,
this
this
is the process.
So you've gone through it and this is.
So you think you wanna say it?
Exactly right. These are the nuts and bolts you need to know.
The policy is more
Policy
for the
for-
township, like this is how we're doing this.
Got it, okay.
And it keeps us on
Primer
track.
goes to the resident per se.
Yeah, and that's, I mean,
But
they
can
could
get
read the
if
policy.
they want.
Don't look
Well,
at
I'm only hoping
Post
that they would, if
SAD.
they're taking their, is taking their neighborhood through this process,
Hopefully.
that they will have been.
Yeah,
Hopefully that's
That's
easy
the
enough.
one.
yeah,
Okay,
okay.
so did you say page 10? So now I'm looking because Patrick, you had best practices in yours. So at the top, it has policy, but the process.
So the primer is the process for using a local special assessment district to improve neighborhood roads in Scio Township.
Page 10,
Yeah, then there's draft 2,
draft 3.
and then we have the policy itself on page 90 of the packet, but it's page 1. So that's where, but so that's,
That's what we were just talking about. We were on page 2 of that first
yeah.
document.
So it was, I'm sorry, I must have, I don't know.
Make sure the document date you're looking at is the February date, not the November. At the bottom
Yes.
of the page.
And then this should not be called policy. It should be called,
Mine, the
because,
primer is the process for, it doesn't say policy anywhere on it.
yeah.
Oh, it's blued out because I tried to cut and paste them to put them together. And it took the title.
Oh, I
Which is
see.
why it's crossed out. And then I had thought by saving it with it crossed out, that would not be visible, but it didn't work that way. When I sent it to Jillian, it looked,
She had the review changes turned on, so what she sees and what you see are two different things.
got it.
Yeah, sorry. I
You
just-
gotta kind of like get to the point where you accept everything and that should refresh the document.
Okay,
It's always, that feature is really confusing.
But the words we need to see are the ones that are there. If it's crossed out, it's intended to be.
Okay. So my notes are for the policy. I mean, yeah, so. This is,
page 2, page 3.
yeah, no, but let's not deal with the policy tonight
Okay,
because that wasn't the intention. I'm sorry, it was just all together, so.
Page 10.
So it would be page 10 and then the date, as Linda said, was February 22nd. With, yeah, 24th, okay. And then next to it has 11/20/23 crossed out, right? That's what you're all looking at.
Mhm.
Great.
What are we actually doing then?
so I'll just say to bring us back to, this has all of the comments that you all have made, the last 2 meetings, we spent time going through this and I corrected all of those.
Now, Patrick, it says, and there's a little box here that, or actually says draft 3, but I thought you had 6 versions.
But I decided that I should just get back to 3 rather than 6.
Okay, so we're, just as long as we're looking at the one that you intended.
We're looking at the right one.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Unless it's in here. It was like an index wasn't there an index or, that's not the right,
Glossary.
lot,
You're thinking of?
the glossary.
Definitions?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
definitions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did, that's on the back.
That's at the back,
Very bad.
page 19, I guess, 18,
Okay, well, there's here, key definitions and acronyms, draft 2.
page 16.
So that would be, that
was
would
the
actually
second
be draft
was-
3.
No, because that was a separate document.
Okay,
So I did the primer. And then I said, oh my God, there's a bunch of acronyms in here. There's very specific words that people aren't gonna understand and they're gonna see it several times. So what was that? And so I just tried to put all of that in one place to make it easier for people who aren't familiar with the verbiage to find.
Does
So-
anyone have changes we need to make to the definitions?
That's a good question. That's something you all have not really, there's no discussion about the last time. That's a good point.
let's go over the definitions and acronyms then.
So is that,
Page 16.
yes, yeah, I'm looking at the packet, so it's page 86 in the packet.
And then, yes, and then
86.
So I guess the definition of Public Act 188 of 1954 is kind of designed to be somewhat legal easy.
Right.
Okay.
So I cut and pasted from places. I didn't
And
want
I
to.
know that you can only make it so like
Exactly right.
user friendly, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even typo thing, but on special assessment it says and sad.
It's not a typo.
Okay, there.
you missed that conversation.
Oh,
I've had it several.
It is proper
You
English.
have to read it as an SAD, not and sad. And
Oh,
SAD.
And
And then,
special assessment.
and SAD,
Yeah,
okay,
those-
no, you're right, okay.
that is so
Well,
funny.
we beat that one to death.
Okay. No, I like it.
And we're
No.
sure.
welcome to the party.
And SAD, yes. You have to say it all the way out, this,
Yeah,
that
exactly,
works,
right. Yeah.
that works.
Oh, yeah, so while statute allows for a township to initiate a SAD, we would need to change that to AN then.
So I am completely lost in this document.
Oh, I'm sorry, under special assessment
Page
districts.
16.
Page 16.
The third qualification, the third definition.
To stay consistent
And then the third sentence.
in SAD.
I can just hear it now.
For a township to initiate.
It'll go in front of the
An
board and they'll
SAD.
say, that's improper. It needs to be
Right.
an A."
You might want to begin your presentation with that.
Well, as long as it's consistent
Funny
throughout,
thing.
then I think, yeah, you're good.
District. To levy a property tax in exchange for a specific service. Let's change that to improvement or
Right.
project.
So where are we at?
Oh,
Page 16.
yep,
Which section?
district, it's the fourth district, yeah, district, and then the last word.
Oh, project instead of service.
Yeah, I mean, in what we're doing, it would just be an improvement. There are special assessments for garbage service and things like that, but if we just keep it along those, so we could have a specific improvement, a specific, let's say improvement. Oh, I'm sorry. It would be the fourth paragraph.
I can't find it now, I'm lost. All right. District, okay, yep. All right, and then repeat the problem again.
It would be the very last word. To levy a
For a
property
specific-
tax in exchange for a specific,
Service, okay. So in this case, a specific improvement.
Improvement, supposed to project.
We're talking about road improvements is the general context.
The neighborhood rep, the member of the district go between the district and Scio Township,
You're not the road commissioner.
not the road commission.
oh, yes, that's right. Because then it would be the manager
It's the manager
Yeah,
that goes
talks with the
between-
road commission.
Well, so I played that role and I met every morning with,
So maybe do and potentially make it some,
okay, so where exactly are we at?
But no, we don't want the neighborhood rep contacting the road commission.
So I met with the road commission person every morning and at the end of the day. So that he could tell me what was happening the next day.
At the end of the project, though,
Yeah.
not at the beginning.
No, but,
No, jury.
and also Patrick, your neighborhood had a special assessment under the road commission. So that would make sense that you would be meeting with the
Okay.
road commission. So since the township is the host of the special assessment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the road commission, of course, would still be involved, but it would be involved from between the manager.
Okay, so we're in the document. are we?
Page 16, this is the very next definition beyond district we just spoke about.
Neighborhood rep.
And so we're again taking the last 4 words of the sentence, just taking WCRC out of it or adding.
The go-between,
So it would be the member of the district that is the go-between, Scio Township and the neighborhood.
technically it's the district,
Or yes, so member of the district that is the go-between,
maybe parenthetically residents. Cause
Yeah,
again,
even
for
more than just
total
district.
layman,
yeah, okay, member of the district. That is the go-between Scio Township and residents
take that
in the district.
take that out. Member of the district, a member. That is the go-between, between Scio Township
Or the,
and residents.
the liaison between
Liaison, I like liaison, 'cause that's what it is.
the residents and Scio Township.
Yeah. Yeah,
That is the how do we say that? Liaison
liaison.
between residents. Ooh. And Scio Township. Okay,
Maybe liaison between the residents of the district, since can I keep it on the.
okay, I mean. That's fine. Oh, let's see. Parcel definition looks fine to me. Anybody else?
I think the rest of it's fine.
Yeah. Still looks funny to see Ann said.
Takes me getting used to.
Yeah, it does.
But if you Google it, you'll find out
You'll find the same page that we both found.
exactly right.
It literally did happen like that.
Oh,
And it does not sound right to say.
and page 17, we have program manager, that should be project manager.
That's the reference earlier was the township project manager,
Well, that's
In the
one of
policy.
managers, yes.
trying to decide whether it's township manager or township project manager.
Yeah,
That person is what we're talking about.
yes.
Selecting one, that's the liaison with the neighborhood representative.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, for the neighborhood rep member, so that's,
Oh, okay. No, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go.
yeah, it would be on the next page. So, we wouldn't have to put in the definition of a township manager, would we?
I don't think that's necessary.
Okay.
They haven't figured that out by now.
But the project manager, of course, a member of the township staff who works with the neighborhood representative and Washtenaw County Road Commission project manager to guide the special assessment district through its road improvement project.
Works for me.
Perfect. Washtenaw County Road Commission project manager, member of the road commission staff who is assigned to oversee a SAD project in coordination with the town.
And SAD project.
Well, I don't even think we need to have this. Washtenaw County, because they're not gonna be dealing with the road commission directly.
But Patrick put it in here if it's mentioned in the
If
permit.
it's mentioned,
So he's picked it up because we remember we were saying these acronyms will kill you.
Okay,
So
so,
somewhere we have an RCPM.
or CPM. Okay.
I don't know where.
okay, yeah, it's on page 10,
To
best.
have that acronym, you need to have the definition.
Okay, so let's look at the definition. Member of the road commission staff who is assigned to oversee a SAD project in coordination with the Scio Township it would be project manager. And neighborhood representative, and then oversee an SAD project. Do you see that who is assigned to oversee, and then we need it AN?
Mhm.
Okay, so you got that. Okay.
Okay.
So we did not talk about private roads in this. Okay, that's where it got confusing for me when I was, because of the, okay.
Yeah, that's the next project.
Could everyone, and especially you, Caroline, I want you to read through this because you have fresh eyes. And then you can give us that'll be your homework if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. So the policy and the primer?
Nope, just the primer.
Just the primer,
Yeah,
not the policy. Okay.
not yet. Yeah, we're gonna get to not tonight.
And then there's like a second part to the
Set the timing.
timing, so it's just like
Yeah.
a second part. That's a couple pages. Okay.
Yeah. And then I added a paragraph in the text you all had said, there's a lot of slush in the timing.
Where's the timing?
It's,
Yeah,
another,
page 18 and 19.
yeah, timing estimates, draft 2.
Oh, it just keeps going. Okay.
Believe me, it just keeps going and going.
We want, if this is not private roads, and the layperson is not going to understand the difference between private roads and not private roads. You're right, to make a statement in the introduction somewhere. Or in actually the header
To specify.
specifies
Public.
these are neighborhood roads, not private roads, which use a different set of rules or something.
Well, we can create a primer for private. That won't be too hard.
No, it won't, but my point is that the average person is not going to understand that there is a difference.
Yes.
And they're going to get in here and they're going to think.
Yeah.
So we could put up at the top, what is the actual title of this? Because
The primer?
yes, we have Scio Township Special Assessment District Policy, but is it just primer?
Yeah,
After that, how about public road primer? Or in parentheses under, put public road, and then when we have the private road draft, we'll put in however you want it, but just have it separate. Linda, what do you think?
I think that either in the header or right in the introduction, but somewhere where it slaps them before they've taken time to read down to page 19 and discover that this does not apply to them.
And we also have to think of staff, because staff is gonna be handing this out, and if they give the wrong, or if they don't know any better, like, oh, it's just, here's a primer. So if it's,
Yeah, so it has to have in the header, but I think that Linda's point is a good one, that I think people need to. I'm sure there are enough people that have no idea whether they live on a public or private road. I mean, the sign on the front of your street might say it, but sometimes they don't, or whatever. Just,
yeah, I think that unless it's an anomaly, like the end of West Street, but most people know that they live on a private road
you gotta
because,
make that a
I
sign.
don't think so, Jillian.
well, they have to take care of their own road. Who plows it for them? I mean, I don't. I just put my truck in four-wheel drive and go up and down, but I mean, most people do something with their roads, don't they?
The HOA does it, but it, you know, they're just paying an HOA fee. It's invisible to them. They don't know.
You know what, you're right, I'm not thinking of an HOA, I am thinking of just like West Street or, you know, one of these side
I
roads that
think
would be.
Brambly or Briarly.
Yeah, that's what I'm
private
I'm
thinking.
thinking of the subdivisions with private roads.
That's, yep, you're right. Totally forgot about that. Okay, well,
So there should be a definition somewhere, so a private road is this, a public road is this.
okay, let's put that in there at the end.
At the end.
Well, in the,
In the title, right?
Additionally, we could add to the definitions, a private road is this and a public road is, but yes, somewhere in the,
And in the title, have it very clear that this is public road.
process for a public road.
so this is, that would be under key definitions and acronyms.
Yeah.
Public,
Versus private.
Public versus private. That's a
Okay.
good point.
Yep.
okay, so,
So just to say, with the timing stuff, you all pointed out last time that it was kind of mushy. And I explained why, and it made sense, but I've included in the text of the primer that this timing stuff is, you know, this is in general, it's gonna take 9 to 18 months, but stuff happens. I don't remember how I said it, but
Depends when you start and stuff happens.
exactly, right. Yep. But we do make a suggestion about it's really smart to be queued up early in the winter, or, you know, February, March, January, February. You increase your odds of getting it done in 9 to 12 months as opposed to 14 to 18. And
Yeah.
obviously the range is best and worst possible case. And given the number of potential stages, you could be worst case in one section and best case in another. So it's just to give people some sense of you
I
gotta,
like
you
that.
gotta be patient, but you gotta be on top of things too.
I like that in order to complete a project in late fall, it's wise to start your neighborhood process at least 18 months.
Yeah.
Before the November 15th in the year you want to complete the project. I mean, that makes it very clear.
Yeah,
yeah,
but you could get lucky.
You could.
Yeah.
It's
But
saying
you
it's
shouldn't count
wise.
on it.
Yeah, it's wise.
Okay.
Okay, so we still haven't gotten this off of your desk, Patrick, I'm sorry.
Well, we'll get it next month.
yeah, it's coming along though.
I mean, every suggestion today was a good one, you know. Actually, it won't be next month because we'll get Carolyn's comments. It'll be the month after that, but.
Well, if we, yeah, we'll get her.
So would it be legit for her to send them, I mean, in terms of process, for her to send her suggestions to me in the next couple of weeks so I can directly so that I can correct it in the next version is,
So just one-on-one,
This one-on-one.
but I don't know if that's
and that's
legit
okay, that's
or not.
kosher.
I think so in this case,
Well-
because we discussed it.
Yeah, and it's still gonna come back to us next.
But absolutely.
And then we could,
But rather, this saves us a month.
Yeah.
If I
Okay.
got her suggestions, I put them in there, and then you all will see her suggestions plus the ones we all just made, and so it'll be a cleaner document.
You could also then send it back to us to read it.
Is that legit?
Well, we're gonna upload
That
it
makes
to the packet.
Mhm.
I mean, we're gonna
It's-
have to have it.
It's legit if you send it to us and we don't respond.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
but
it's
just
the-
bring your,
It's legit if we make a comment like you've done an ASAD and we tell you that
Mhm.
and I go directly back to you, that's legitimate.
okay.
and then bring, and
And
then,
that helps.
Move things along, right?
yeah, and then bring it, well, I'll
With
bring
all
your
the-
suggestions.
All the questions, all the suggestions I got, I've incorporated.
Yeah, so how about this, at the next meeting, and Patrick, would you mind, would you be able to begin the private road primer?
I'll have to read about private roads first, but yeah,
Okay,
that would be good.
at least get that going, but then next meeting, we'll have, hopefully we'll be able to vote on this, send it to somebody. I'm thinking, well, Chris, we'll have to work together and figure out the next steps where it goes. We'll talk with Joyce and whatnot. And then the road commission, if they want to look over it, just there, because they're gonna know the process from there. And then we should be able to, then, I don't know if, legal, I mean, we could send this and the policy to legal at the same time, because, they're gonna charge us for everything. And then it goes in front of the board. And we're not, nobody's knocking down our doors for special assessments, so. I mean, I know Amy was here but I know the staff is not, I mean, they're like, they don't even want us to do SATs. They're like, the township shouldn't even do it. I'm like, no, that's not gonna work, because we have people that want to improve their roads, so. We need to have it, and if we have enough eyes and enough staff, and we'll be good. We'll have everything polished and we shouldn't have any issues.
If it's a clear procedure, I think it'll make it much easier for the staff to proceed
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah, and then in the meantime, the township finance department can figure out the township improvement revolving fund and all that mess. And then, because that's really what we're supposed to do, is use that to finance whatever projects, and then it goes back in, and then we finance the next, but they've got to clean that up. Yeah, I think by the time we're ready for our first SAD, everything will be straightened up.
So there was I'm just thinking back now in my memory, maybe a little foggy on this, but we got stuck about 3 months ago on fees and administrative costs and all of that. And I think at this point in time, it's still blank in here. I think that's TBD by the board, correct?
That was the big question last night at the board. Yeah, so they'll be figuring that out.
Okay.
And then, right, because there's going to be cost allocation every year, and how do we include that up front? Because we can't go back later and add that on. But we'll get there. We can always plug in the numbers later on. We'll
And
just-
I imagine that could change from year to year depending on circumstances. And so this document may have to change as interest rates change or whatever.
Or we could put in just an underscore and say, there will be a fee charged by the township. Underscore check, check with the township manager for current rate.
Yeah.
And that inserts it into the discussion, but does not
So
promise.
there's no surprises.
And it gives you a document that
Right.
doesn't have to be amended every year, and then make sure that they've got all the right copies at the front desk. It's just.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, keep it as fluid as possible, then we don't have to.
Well, I just, having done a lot of different things with the township, to have a timeline like this and a specific flow chart and definition, I think it's really gonna be a strong document. We just have to get it in front of the township board. And then we also probably need to decide who's gonna present it to them as a matter of importance, so it doesn't get shuffled down to the bottom of the stack, because there's a lot of other things that come to board.
Would it? If I were handed this as a resident. And maybe it's in there and I haven't read through it enough, to grab it, but if you have questions on this, contact ...
It is. It says,
It's in there.
there's something that says any questions, contact, the township manager.
Okay.
Or project
project
manager,
manager.
and it actually, I think, has Chris's phone number in there.
Chris's phone number in there, yeah.
Okay.
No name, but Chris's phone number.
Chris, you're gonna be a specialist.
Specialist.
Yes. Instead of
Special assessment specialist. Okay, so we have a plan for this. I think it sounds good. Everybody, should we vote on that? Or we're in agreement? It's unanimous. Okay. We have a plan. And the flow chart, we'll include that flow chart with the,
Scheme.
okay, so, last night at the board meeting, I was able to create a, okay, there's two different things here. Oh, our charge, our resolution and charge. There was some changes, we talked about the membership, so that was included. And then the township had adopted the Open Meetings Act and then also the committee appointment policy. So I was able to plug that in. And then there were some minor changes that I don't know how we got missed. There was like typos and stuff in there, which we didn't, it wasn't us, it came from the board. It was weird. So I cleaned all of that up and I included a paragraph about policies because we did start policies and I wanted, like the planning commission has bylaws. So that's in, I think in their ordinance, but I wanted to make sure that the road advisory committee had something in the resolution that referenced that we could create policies for ourselves.
Did the board vote on it?
Yep, they accepted it. They helped with some of the language too, which
So we have an updated charge, but we don't have it in the agenda.
no, because it just happened last night, but it is in the packet from last night. Or, well, no, wait a minute. It went to the clerk, so the clerk has to make those changes and then upload it into.
So our new charge will be a part of our agenda packet at the next meeting. Probably. Well,
The policy
they wouldn't have
revision.
finished it if it was last night's meeting.
Yeah, it would have
Would
to.
not yet, it would have been.
So are you're suggesting to have it in the packet for next meeting?
So,
Or do you
well,
want to just go onto the website and look at it?
that would be fine too. I think perhaps we should make a point to look at our new charge. Each of us.
And I mean, we pretty much already did and we approved that and sent it to the board, but other than,
You indicated that there were changes made.
yeah, because the township, that's what we were waiting on was the township and the board approving the Open Meetings Act and also the committee policy. Because if we would have went ahead and changed our charge, had them change it, approve it, then we would have had to turn around and make these other changes.
Okay, well, homework. They're going to go to the Scio Township website, look at the roads page and the updated charge sometime several days from now or later.
It will have a new resolution number, I believe. But the clerk is pretty quick about getting those policies up. Okay, so the next thing, policy revisions. So I was thinking about, and we talked about this a little bit, but Patrick and I have worked on just adding things to the policy as time unfolds. But there is something that I have to go back. So this is, when we're not here anymore, but the road advisory committee is, we can just pass everything off to the new members and they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can make changes, of course, they can, if they don't like the policies or whatever, just scrap it and start from the beginning, but it's just, having this, like, we already have a policy. Remember, we had a member that wasn't showing up and was removed, but we decided to have a policy that if somebody misses three meetings within a year, that we would have a conversation with that person, and if it's not working, that we would suggest to the board to have them removed or whatever. So that's in here. I don't think I included the old policy. There was only like 4 lines with the old policy or 4 bullet points.
Is that one?
Yeah, so yes, there it is. That's the old one. So there's, 4 paragraphs.
So that's page 100
Oh, I did include it.
in
Yeah,
the packet.
okay. New policies. Yeah, so that's page 100 and then 101. So as Patrick and I have been working together with the agenda, and then thinking of like the day after the meeting, I put myself on a schedule. The day after our meeting, I create a report for the board. So even if I'm the chair or not, that chairperson would need to create a report for the board. And it was just, so I plugged that in. Where we've agreed that our agendas would be the Friday before the meeting.
And
I'm sorry, I
appreciate
forgot.
everybody getting them to me that Wednesday before.
Yeah, the Wednesday before. So we have this system and it seems to be really working. So I just wanted to have that in there so they, it's just so much easier. And then to break down what would go into the agenda packet, and of course, there can always be more, but what does unfinished business mean? What does new business mean? Just kind of like an outline. And then the type of communications, because, that's the biggest problem, I probably in government right across every municipality, but communications between us and the township, the community, and especially the community. So how do we get the word out and what we're doing? Well, we have our newsletter article, which I've written 2 articles so far. That was not, I was only asked to do that, but that could be something that we all agree upon, what goes into that article. So anything that comes up, like, I'm trying to think what I just put into this article. It's been a really long week, many deadlines all at once. I know I did mention about the 2 big projects, the Jackson Road and then the Zibberty or the Ziller roundabout. So those were 2 things. Or if somebody wants to take on, right.
That's a combination of.
Yeah,
Ziller.
Yeah, there's Zibberty, Ziller. So unless somebody wants to take on writing the article, it would still have to be approved by RAC, but.
Well, if we've got a deadline of June 10, it could be something that we assign at the next meeting and we still have time to get it done. By May to get in by June 10.
Yeah, and it's nice that Mary provided all committees and board members. Yes, that was really helpful. Oh, and the one thing that I didn't know, so the article I wrote was 600 words and she didn't give me a minimum or a maximum. So I just put in what I thought was most important. And then she says, oh, well, we only need like 300. So I said, well, that would have been nice. So we should put that in here, like a maximum 300 words or something.
Does that depend upon, so I did in TAP, I wrote some of those articles and she never gave me a word count. But she did a great job of editing. I think the word count depends upon the space that's available given the other articles.
Yeah, I can ask her again
Correct.
what the approximate number.
But she was really good at editing.
She is.
Redirecting.
And she wants to make sure it's all factual. So that's the one thing that, she's called me a couple times, just verifying facts and.
So on the communications section, the RAC webpage,
Mhm.
could you elaborate on what that looks like?
Um,
Because I don't think we've really talked about that.
do you want to pull it up?
I went to it today. I just Googled,
Isn't it pretty?
I guess like the Scio Township RAC and had a link right to it.
Yeah, it's pretty basic. I mean, it has some history.
It's pretty basic, yeah.
Yeah, and
We're
then,
gonna add the primer, we're gonna add the protocols.
Yeah,
Some stuff coming. So,
I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean,
you know, would somebody want to take that on? To
Could
make sure it's
you-
updated and that. Well, no, you would end
They do it,
up
you just tell them
contacting,
what to do.
yeah, you would be working with Mary Gillis. She's the one that does the web pages and the newsletter. So it would be. Or it could be the chair. I mean, it doesn't matter, but if we have somebody assigned, at least we know that it's being updated.
So Carolyn's in here already.
I noticed. I looked at that, I said, oh my goodness, Johnny on the spot.
No, Mary called me and she told me, I thought she was calling because I just had emailed Christy to make sure that your email address was included in the RAC email. And then Mary calls me and she's like, oh, is this the new member, Caroline? And then I said, oh, you're updating the email. She goes, no, I'm updating the webpage. I'm like, how did you know how to do that already? Or who told you? She goes, oh, I watched the meeting last night. I'm like, okay, I did one thing off our list, but it was really, she's great on top of things.
So the updates that you're talking about to the RAC website are,
Well, it would be like what Linda just said, when we're finished with the primer
Right.
and the policies, then make sure that is sent over to Mary and for her to upload it. And then you would have to look at the web page on your computer to make sure that it looks good to the public. Yeah, and make sure the links are working and that type of thing. It's what we've,
and infrequent but necessary.
right. Yeah, it's just, there's another to do, you know, that we need to make sure is done. But it's a minor. So that's why I put it in here to remind us that we need to do that. So the webpage.
so that's different than giving a column for the newsletter.
Correct. Yeah, so the person that takes on the webpage does not have to write the article unless you want to. And we could also just rotate
Doesn't need
the
to have
article.
any kind of website maintenance, because I have like.
No,
fancy web-
no, they do all of that
You just give them the material.
and just make sure the links are working on, you know, from the public's side. Yeah, that's easy. Okay.
All right, you're up.
So where's sorry, I just read it here. Oh, the website. So we can put in, need to make a note somewhere. Not the publish, but I'll just keep this. So Caroline, you will,
So I'm assuming that it's like at these meetings where they're gonna say, okay, this is done. I've got the document, then I contact Mary, say, is it Mary that's doing that?
Mary Gillis, yeah.
Say, okay, Mary, bada boom, here we go.
And then just follow up and make sure it got done
And yeah,
right.
follow, and then wait for her to do it, make sure it gets done timely. and
She'll
then make
probably
sure-
follow up with you, so this doesn't make sense, or how about doing this instead?
Yeah, it's fine.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's section 9(1). And then 1, that's in the statute. I don't know why they do that, but I copied and pasted from Open Meetings Act.
Jillian, do you need me here to vote on the minutes? I have to leave.
Oh, let's do the minutes and then we'll come back to this policy. And well, unless it,
I don't know that we need to vote. I think you've got it. I'm gonna have to dodge out.
oh, sure. The minutes, yeah, it's fine. And so is everybody okay with this policy? Is there anything you want to change, add, delete?
Actually,
The committee policies? You're talking about the committee policies?
Just the committee policy. So this can always be changed if there's something that we need to include later.
So I want to ask on the yearly task schedule, we have the October meeting, create a proposed list. It would likely list by the end of December, but we don't have when we're create a proposed list, and then it seems to me that's step one. The second is to finalize the list and to forward it to the board. Is that right, or am I just building too many steps in there?
Yeah, so that would,
It seems to me, my thought was at the time when I read this, that the October meeting was to throw the ideas out there. If there was a discussion about which roads were priorities, we would work those out then, or we would leave it to the next meeting, to the November meeting to finalize. So but that's me putting process in place that may not be necessary.
well, okay, so this is in here early based on the recommendation from the road commission. So usually we do this in January, February to get ready for May, but they said the earlier the better because then they can work with the surrounding townships and our projects. So so I was trying to remember the process that we did, and plus this year was different.
Well, but we were earlier than we've ever been before, even in December because of the ARPA funds.
Right, but we had a different process to create those rather than what we have done in the past, which we will end up doing in the future. So let's say we're ready, okay, it's October. We go, how did we plug in our old process with this?
We had Roy's spreadsheet.
Which we will be creating with. Yeah. So then we'll already be looking at the different roads, and then we'll have to figure out, well, this is how much we have to spend this year, and this is the projected list or the.
And then that priority organizing committee will make a proposal to us about which are the top 3 or 4, or based on the money available. Is that right?
Yes, and then Chris. Because usually, what did we do? We had the list of roads, but I think it was Roy giving it to the road commission already, and then it went in front of the board. But for the final approval, or it went to the supervisor, but see, this is what kind of threw me off. Like, so in that October meeting is when we figure out the road list, and then Adam had said that it should go to the road commission, so probably Chris and the manager to give to the road commission so they can look at it and say, okay, we can do those and it's really good because we have these other roads in that area. Or what other roads do you have that are important because maybe they have more projects in another area? Because they don't need it finalized until the following year, but that gives them enough time. Okay. So October should be good, and then November.
Remember, we finalized the list.
Would that be good? Is that?
If it goes to the road commission and comes back, yeah.
Okay, so right in under November, finalize project list.
Road project.
Finalize WCRC road project list. And submit to PM, project manager. I guess, and township manager.
So that's the road commission project manager, this is the first one you mentioned, no. Okay. Oh, okay.
To for WCRC. Okay. And then December meeting, we begin reviewing the budget to get ready to send that to the township manager. Yeah, so this is a little, because the budget and the road list kind of go hand in hand.
Earlier is better. I think okay, using November as a target, if you miss it, we've got
I
December.
think if we have a clean process, earlier is better. And I think we're gonna have a clean process going forward. I think we're organized enough now.
Yeah, and the township manager, this year they began in December a little bit. We had our preliminary meetings. And then in January is when they were, what are your numbers?
Mhm.
And then they would be asking questions. So it's been a long process.
Do we want to reference the Excel spreadsheet with roads and this event? Just to breadcrumbs for
Oh.
future.
Policy, updating the road list.
So I have a better view of the clock than you do.
Yeah, I need to get out of here.
Okay.
So we gotta do the minutes
I
and we can
apologize.
finish it up. Thank you.
Okay. I have a note for update road list. Sometime in the yearly task, maybe in the summer, that would be a good project. Okay. We can review the policies next or finalize it or whatever. And then the minutes, so Linda, do you wanna leave?
I do, I don't have any problems with the minutes at all. I just.
Remember we accept the minutes. Yes, they are.
I'll second your motion, Patrick.
There you go.
I,
I thought that would help.
I,
You third.
we all say aye.
Aye, right.
Aye.
Anybody-
Aye.
Take care, Linda.
Okay. So let's see, the last thing is, I created a task list of things that we're working on. It's just something to keep us as a to-do. We can check it off as we go. We can add to it. I've been using a new system called the bullet journal for my life, and it's been really helpful. So bullet journal, yeah. And so anyways, I thought I'm just gonna, write everything down and have a 1, 2, 3 or whatever, and then we can just check it off as we go. So it's just, helpful for everybody. And if there's anything that's missing, we can always add to it. It's just a to-do list. All right, so we come to there's reports in here. There's only 2, 3. And then educational information, please read all of that when you get a chance, whatever's in there. And
I thought the road commission's report was really helpful. Just the mileage and the financial information and how much it would cost to maintain our roads at an appropriate level per year as we think about the millage going forward. I found those numbers really helpful.
oh, good, yeah. So in the road commission, we'll have a ballot question in November. I think that's when it is. And also last night, a Lieutenant Hunt from the Sheriff Department was here with us giving, to talk about the budget, some questions with the budget, and there will be is it the mental health millage? Through the Sheriff Department, that's up for renewal. They're trying to renew it a year early. That's going to be on the ballot in November as well. So lots of county stuff. Oh, and Chris talking with Chris over the last month. This is he found this on the GIS.
Yep, County Road Commissioners website.
Yes, and it's really helpful. So what we have to do, you started the GIS a little bit, but this is the map and it shows all the public roads. Except, what we need to do is put it in a list. So by segment, and then we have to plug in the private roads so we know where they are. And also, after the last meeting, I was in Township Hall, I was looking for more agreements. We were talking about different road projects in the past, and I have the WCRC road agreements going back to 1999. And then resident Kathleen Brandt had asked about her road, so I was looking for that as well. Well, I found a file in somewhere in there. It had road agreements going back to 1989. So I made copies and uploaded them in here. So as we're making our list, we can also plug in the dates going back in history of when those roads were done, because I have a feeling there's some roads that have never been done, and those should go to the top of the list when we get there. But we can talk about breaking this up next time or how we're going to do it. Figure that out. Yeah, we've got a lot to do, but okay. Public comments. I'm getting tired too. Anybody?
Yep, Mr. Patterson.
No, absolutely did not. In fact, Ann Arbor actually, if a developer came in, they paved the roads. There was no question if you were gonna do a development, it was on them to not only pave them, but to maintain them. So, no, they didn't have any SADs in Ann Arbor. Yep. I'm learning.
We'll figure it out.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. Is there anybody else who wants to raise a hand?
I thought I had my hand raised.
Not raised, but please go ahead.
Yeah, well, it showed it and then it went away. This is Paula Gloverson. And I have a quick question. With the Public Act 33 for SADS versus the 188, which I'm very familiar with, and I have read in the near past the Public Act 33. And when will Public Act 33 be utilized for roads?
It can't be, because that's just for police and fire services.
Okay, that's a good clarification for me. And when is Matt Park from OHM? When will he be presenting to you all?
That will
at
be
the
the next,
RAC?
the next meeting. He was on vacation this meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the flow chart. We use those in medicine all the time for decision making. And also the whole Park Road has gone up to 5.5 million from 2.2 million. And when Matt comes in to do his presentation, it would be nice to see. I think they use the ARPA funds to put that plan together.
No,
What was it then, Jillian?
it wasn't. Okay, let's clarify here. The Park Road project has not been in front of the board. The board has not approved it.
Yeah, I'm aware of
Okay.
that.
The only thing the board did approve was the engineer study, and that was paid for through the MEDC grant.
Okay.
But that does not lock us into that project. So
Yes,
I know there was
Go ahead.
so somebody put that in the budget. It was not Matt Parks. I had a conversation with him about it. Somebody was talking to Ally or Joyce or whatever. I don't know how it got into the budget. It shouldn't have been there, and it's created a lot of issues. So
Yeah, I'm aware of kind of what might have gone on there. And then my other question is John Reiser last night discussing the sidewalk issues again. Now, I realize there's some overlap there. what exactly, I mean, he's looking for a whole nother project, even though he got his other project done for his neighborhood over there in the uplands. Are you all in the RAC involved? Are you going to be involved with sidewalks? I know that was really up in the air.
So far, no, we don't, and I brought that up yesterday. Again, the board needs to sit down and talk about capital improvements and figure out who's responsible for sidewalks.
Yeah,
Because
I
it keeps
really
coming up,
appreciate,
nobody knows. Yes.
I really appreciate that all of you really have been on top of trying to actually figure out. And I want to say to Chris Chang, as far as Park Road would have gone, if they would have done it the Ann Arbor way, where a developer would have paid for the portion, I don't think it's quite a half a mile, would have saved us a lot of grief with the trail woods. And then, and I was surprised because Roy Townsend was involved in that contract. And my other question, and looks like Linda had to leave, but is about the DDA. You know, they went ahead and paved that Dino, even though not all of the businesses down in that area had agreed to have that portion paved. And so then they're coming back, right? This is a few trustee meetings ago, and wanting to have the Board of Trustees put a SAD on those people. Now, how is the RAC involved with, you know, Hathaway last night had, you know, and wanting that you guys to have interaction with the DDA. I'm just kind of wondering how those SADs are going to work.
So those will not be SADs. The DDA has decided to pay for the paving of Dino and Medi Drive with their own funds. They do
Okay.
have the right to do that with the money that they collect within the DDA. So
Yeah, they collect
yeah,
plenty of money that it can utilize instead of doing that.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just really appreciate the flow chart, getting things so that we didn't have the YouTube videos of Lou and Will Hathaway on there without the proper process. So it's been very much appreciated what everyone does. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paula. You too? Anybody else?
There are no other raised hands that I can see.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, that. What time is it?
It is 8:39,
Motion to adjourn at 8:39?
seconded.
Or was I supposed to second you? Either way.
Proposed it.
I think
Oh,
you,
you proposed it?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Then Ian seconded it, seconded it. Okay,
It's
okay,
late.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Dinner.
All right.
Flow chart was a big hit. Hold on.
Like it, recording.
Yes.
Recording stopped.